Sailor Moon is an anime that has always been near and dear to my heart. It's only fitting that I cover its lore. Welcome back to OtakuDaiKun. Dai here. Today we'll be diving into the lore of Sailor Moon. It started as a manga created by Naoko Takeuchi, and its success led to a massive anime of 5 seasons, various video games, and a remake called Sailor Moon Crystal, designed to be more authentic to the original story. Of these works, I don't feel alone in saying that the classic 90s anime is what truly took me by storm, so it's this version of the story that I'll be covering. Thus, there will be inconsistencies between this lore and that of the manga or Crystal, but it's the classic anime I love, and that's what I'm going to cover. I hope you understand. Even then, we're talking about covering the lore of 5 seasons of anime, plus the movies. That's a tremendous undertaking. As such, I'll be splitting this lore up by the season. To start off, we've got to set up the foundation, which takes us back thousands of years to a prehistoric era known as the Silver Millennium. It was a time of peace, during which the Moon Kingdom existed in harmony with the rest of the solar system, particularly Earth. As you might expect, the Moon Kingdom was a civilization on the moon. But despite them existing so long ago, they possessed advanced technology that surpasses our own, such as a dome-shaped barrier that provided them with an artificial climate and a supercomputer called the Eternity Main System. They were ruled over by Queen Serenity, whom the people of Earth referred to as the moon goddess Selene. Despite being the Queen of the Moon, she actually wasn't from there, but rather a distant universe. Queen Serenity had a daughter, Princess Serenity, with members of the royal family distinguished by the crescent moon symbols on their foreheads. Defense of the Moon Kingdom was headed by the Sailor Guardians, warriors who derived power from the planets in the solar system. The 4 inner guardians protected the royal family, while the outer guardians protected the kingdom from threats beyond the solar system. That said, the greatest power possessed by the Moon Kingdom was actually its most precious treasure, the Silver Crystal. It was a celestial object capable of miraculous feats, such as reviving entire worlds from the brink of ruin. Its mere presence granted the kingdom's people with long lives. Even so, its power came at a cost. The Silver Crystal thrived off the energy of its user, and if that burden were concentrated onto a single person, it would fully consume their life. Of course, this was an emergency precaution, and the Moon Kingdom lived in peace, enjoying ice skating as its most popular sport. Along with living long, prosperous lives, the Moon Kingdom dedicated themselves to 2 missions: to protect the Silver Crystal and to watch over planet Earth. During the Silver Millennium, the Earth had its own thriving kingdom. The Earth Kingdom's prince was named Endymion, who had protectors of his own, his generals called the 4 Kings of Heaven. Prince Endymion met frequently with Princess Serenity, and the two fell in love, standing together as a symbol of peace between the kingdoms. Tragically, however, this peace did not last. A malignant threat emerged in the form of the Dark Kingdom. This Dark Kingdom, comprised of evil Yoma, ruled over by their queen Metalia, sought to destroy the Moon Kingdom and conquer the galaxy. In this endeavor, Metalia bewitched a low-ranking sorceress from Earth known as Queen Beryl and promised her unrivaled dominion over the Earth Kingdom in exchange for her cooperation. Beryl was envious of Princess Serenity, angered by Endymion's rejection, and agreed to Metalia's offer, succumbing to the darkness in her heart. She brainwashed the people of Earth, including Endymion's 4 generals, and launched an attack on the Moon Kingdom. Heading the invasion were the Dark Kingdom's 7 great Yoma, who devastated the land, destroying the Moon Kingdom, Princess Serenity, Endymion, and the Sailor Guardians. As a last resort, Queen Serenity put her life energy into the Silver Crystal, using its power to seal away the Dark Kingdom, and reincarnate the prince, princess, and guardians as inhabitants of 20th century Earth, where they could live normal, happy lives. In particular, the 7 great Yoma were sealed into the Silver Crystal, which separated into 7 pieces known as the Rainbow Crystals. These Rainbow Crystals also found their way to the modern era, hiding within the bodies of Earth's inhabitants. This glorious feat cost Queen Serenity her life, but she continues to exist in a spiritual form, recorded into the Moon's computer. Thus, the Silver Millennium came to an end. The Moon Kingdom was no more, with the exception of Luna and Artemis, advisors who were sent to the modern era and tasked with watching over the reincarnated guardians. Problem was, the prince, princess, and guardians were all reborn, living their lives with no memory of their lineage. They had ordinary lives, with new parents and experiences. Furthermore, Luna and Artemis would have to seek them out individually, sensing their latent powers directly. Thankfully, for the thousands of years since the Silver Millennium, the Dark Kingdom remained sealed, and the Moon Kingdom's refugees could live in peace. Everything would be perfect, if not for the fact that Queen Beryl was also reincarnated, and Metalia's seal weakened over time. Beryl grew up on Earth as an ordinary woman, but came upon the Dark Kingdom's ruins at Point D in the North Pole, where Metalia was sealed. Here, Beryl regained her memories of the Silver Millennium, and Metalia convinced her to once again try and conquer the Earth by restoring the Dark Kingdom to its former glory. Doing so would require two things: enough energy to fully revive Metalia, as well as the silver crystal to break the seal Serenity put on the kingdom's forces. To pull this off, Beryl once again recruited the reincarnations of Endymion's generals, Jadeite, Nephrite, Zoisite, and Kunzite. They would take control of a handful of Yoma to gather energy from the humans while searching for the crystal, not yet knowing it exists in 7 pieces. Luna and Artemis sense this impending darkness and aim to restore the Sailor Guardians so they can fight back. And that, my friends, is where the story really kicks off, with the remnants of the Moon and Dark Kingdoms reassembling their former might to resume a battle from thousands of years ago. Despite Usagi being the main character and leader of the Guardians, she is not the first one to awaken. That would be Minako Aino. Artemis found her living in London and awakened her as Sailor Venus. Without any of the other Sailor Guardians around yet, she stayed in England and fought crime as Sailor V, gaining worldwide fame. That said, Minako had personal problems to deal with. She was in love with a police officer named Alan, and was devastated to find him dating another of her best friends, Katarina. After a warehouse explosion, Alan and Katarina thought Sailor V died, but she survived without telling them. This was Minako's attempt to let Alan and Katarina live happily together without getting them involved with Sailor V's battles. Back in Japan, Princess Serenity is reincarnated as Usagi Tsukino. We meet her as a 14-year-old crybaby middle schooler who's both a klutz and irresponsible student. On her way to school, she comes across Luna, who in turn senses her to be a Sailor Guardian. After school, Luna jumps through Usagi's window and tells her of her fate. The Dark Kingdom is stirring, and the Sailor Guardians must be awakened in order to fight back. Luna gives Usagi a brooch that transforms her into Sailor Moon and urges her to fight the emerging foe. While reluctant at first, Usagi takes up the role in order to save her friend Naru from a Yoma attack dispatched by Beryl's first general, Jadeite. Usagi struggles in her first battle, and only succeeds due to the intervention of Tuxedo Mask, a mysterious ally who distracts Yoma by throwing sharp roses. Of course, we already know who this is. Prince Endymion reincarnated as a boy named Mamoru Chiba. As a child, he survived a car accident that killed his parents. When we meet him, he lives in an expensive apartment by himself while attending university. He appears as Tuxedo Mask subconsciously, urged by visions to pursue the silver crystal. Thus, when we see him in daily life, he is completely unaware of his heroic escapades. So yes, the prince and princess of the Silver Millennium are alive and well in Japan, and even wind up meeting despite having no memories of each other. Their relationship starts out rocky, with the two of them annoyed by each other's presence, Mamoru in particular calling her Bunhead. It's ironic then that Tuxedo Mask protects her, and she has a crush on him. Somehow, neither of them recognize each other as their alter egos. As Sailor Moon, Usagi continues to fight the Yoma that appear in town, guided by Luna under a second mission to locate the reincarnated Princess Serenity. Oddly enough, Luna doesn't realize that this princess is standing right in front of her. What she does sense, however, is a strange aura around Ami Mizuno, one of Usagi's classmates. Ami is the genius daughter of a rich family. Her IQ is supposedly 300, but her true intellect comes from diligent study. She aspires to be a doctor like her mother, living by herself since her parents are divorced. Rather than being admired, Ami's diligence is frowned upon, with her schoolmates dismissing her as stuck-up and arrogant. Even Luna has suspicions, and yet Usagi is quick to befriend her. This is fortuitous, as Ami is a victim, not a villain. The cram school she attends is actually a ploy by the Dark Kingdom to brainwash students. When Ami and her peers are attacked by their Yoma leader, Luna realizes that Ami's aura is actually that of a reincarnated Sailor Guardian. Luna tosses her a transformation pen, which allows her to transform into Sailor Mercury and defeat the Yoma. The fight serves as definitive proof of her powers, and Ami decides to team up with Usagi in the battle against the Dark Kingdom. This continues until the police investigate reports of missing buses. At the Hikawa Shrine, Usagi and friends meet Rei Hino, a hot-headed Shinto shrine maiden outed by her peers for having strange powers. Sure enough, she can read fire and manipulate spirits with chants and talismans. She lives at the shrine with her pervert grandfather. It turns out that the missing buses gather patrons of the shrine, taking them away to another dimension. Rei figures this out and winds up with Usagi on the other side as she fights the Yoma bus driver. During the fight, Rei is discovered to be the reincarnated Sailor Mars and takes to battle in order to protect her shrine's reputation. While it's great to have yet another ally, Usagi is upset since Rei also seems to have a crush on Tuxedo Mask. After failing multiple times to gather energy with his Yoma, Queen Beryl declares to Jadeite that he has one final chance to kill the Sailor Guardians. Desperate, he challenges them to a duel at Haneda Airport. There, he controls jets to try and harm the Guardians. Working together, the Guardians and Tuxedo Mask manage to defeat Jadeite, having him crushed by one of the jets. Despite losing, he manages to figure out the Guardians' identities, but Beryl punishes him before he can reveal them. He is exiled to eternal darkness, and Nephrite is appointed to continue the mission. Nephrite oversees more Yoma attacks, disguising himself on Earth as a human named Masato Sanjoin. He uses this false identity to get closer to Usagi's friend Naru, whom he mistakenly thinks is Sailor Moon. Investigating further, Nephrite starts falling for Naru, compromising his loyalty to Beryl. Queen Beryl hears a foreign princess is visiting Japan and will be unveiling her kingdom's greatest treasure. Hoping this is the silver crystal, she dispatches the General Zoisite to investigate. Nephrite, after several failed attempts at gathering energy, also declares that he will search for the crystal. At the same time, Luna suspects that the foreign princess may in fact be Princess Serenity. Thus, the Guardians attend the princess's party. Usagi, disguised as a fake princess, encounters Tuxedo Mask, bringing back some long-lost memories of their previous life. They battle against Nephrite's Yoma, who had possessed the princess, only to find out that neither she nor the treasure were what the Guardians and Beryl had hoped for. The party resumes, and Tuxedo Mask kisses Usagi, despite worrying about his identity and ultimate goal. Strangely enough, he still doesn't recognize her as Usagi, the bunhead that annoys him. Rivalry builds as Nephrite abandons his task of gathering energy in favor of seeking the crystal, which is currently Zoisite's job. Claiming to be better suited for the task, Nephrite creates a black crystal, a device that can be used to track down the silver crystal. Faced with this rivalry, Zoisite consults his lover and mentor, the fourth General Kunzite, who advises that they just steal the silver crystal should Nephrite find it first. On Usagi's side of things, pursuing Nephrite becomes more difficult after she learns that he and Naru's crush are one and the same. She is torn when she learns that Naru is willing to protect Nephrite, despite knowing he's a minion of the Dark Kingdom. In turn, Nephrite claims to love Naru, even after acknowledging she doesn't have the crystal, and he comes clean about his identity. He claims he wants to fight alongside Sailor Moon, now that he's learned of love, but is really just using Naru to lure out Usagi. He's clearly torn between his love and his loyalty. Zoisite finds out about the black crystal and wants it for himself. He has his Yoma kidnap Naru, attempting to trade her for it. Nephrite instead slays the Yoma and rescues her. In a moment of peace, Naru tears part of her pajamas to make a bandage for his wounded arm. They promise to go out on a date, only for another Yoma to appear, stabbing Nephrite with a life-draining thorn. Wounded, Nephrite expends his energy protecting Naru from the Yoma, leaving him vulnerable to attack from Zoisite as he claims the black crystal. Even after the Guardians arrive and vanquish the Yoma, Nephrite succumbs to his wounds and dies apologizing to Naru for all of his deceit. After another consultation with Metalia, Queen Beryl now understands the nature of the silver crystal, that it exists in 7 pieces which can be found within 7 people of Earth. She modifies the black crystal so that Zoisite can detect the rainbow crystals. Meanwhile, Usagi is back to her usual antics, running late for school, and accidentally runs into some street punks who try to extort money from her. She is saved when her classmate, Makoto Kino, steps in and beats him in a brawl. Makoto is the reincarnation of Sailor Jupiter. She's lived a harsh life, with her parents dying in a plane crash, and her peers fearing her based on rumors that she beat up a kid. Usagi, on the other hand, is in no way deterred, and is again quick to befriend yet another guardian. The two hit up a video arcade, where they witness Crane Game Joe, a master at winning stuffed animals. Apparently, Joe wins the game through a form of telekinesis granted to him by having a rainbow crystal, making him a victim for Zoisite. Makoto feels Joe reminds her of her old senpai, a crush of hers, and offers to be his bodyguard. Turns out Joe's a moron, as even while being attacked by Zoisite, he refuses Makoto, claiming she's too big for his tastes. Seriously, a lot of guys are stupid, since this is exactly what her senpai told her in the past. Ain't no reason you can't treat a tomboy like a lady. Getting his comeuppance, Joe loses his rainbow crystal to Zoisite, turning into one of the 7 great Yoma. As Usagi fights him, Makoto steps in to kick more ass, revealing herself as a reincarnated guardian. Like the others, Luna tosses her a transformation pen, awakening the Babe of Lightning. Alongside this, Usagi gets a new tool, the Moon Stick, a relic from the Silver Millennium that lets her perform Moon Healing Escalation. She purifies the Yoma, returning Joe to normal. While the heroes lose the first rainbow crystal, they gain a new ally. Tragically, it seems Makoto has a penchant for falling for guys who apparently resemble the douche senpai who rejected her. By this point, Mamoru begins realizing that he might actually be Tuxedo Mask, and is urged through dreams to restore the silver crystal. In turn, Luna gives the Guardians the lowdown on the silver and rainbow crystals, so now it's a competition to see if they can get them before the Dark Kingdom can. Just like the Black Crystal, Usagi's Moonstick can track the rainbow crystals down. The next carrier is a priest in Yokohama. Luckily, Usagi happens to be in the area while cheering Naru up. Unfortunately, this means Naru is caught in another fight between the Guardians and Zoisite. He extracts the priest's rainbow crystal, but it goes flying. While the Guardians are busy fighting the resulting Yoma, Tuxedo Mask manages to retrieve the rainbow crystal before Zoisite. With the crystal in hand, Tuxedo Mask transforms back into Mamoru, and he finally realizes his true identity. Before he left, however, he dropped a music box that he's had with him all his life. Turns out this was a remnant from the Silver Millennium, a gift Princess Serenity gave to Endymion. Usagi finds it and keeps it close. Having lost the second rainbow crystal, Zoisite declares he'll just have to steal it back when Tuxedo Mask comes for the rest. 5 crystals remain to be found. The next one is found within Ryo Urawa, a transfer student whose intelligence rivals Ami's, thanks to clairvoyance from his crystal. He even predicts Zoisite coming to turn him into a Yoma, and even knows Ami is Sailor Mercury. He doesn't want to hurt Ami, fearing his Yoma form will attack her. As anticipated, this happens when Zoisite steals the rainbow crystal. Even so, Ami and her friends are able to fight off the Yoma and return him to normal. She even manages to swipe the rainbow shard right from Zoisite. The next rainbow crystal is within an artist named Yumemi Yumeno. At one of her art galleries, both Usagi and Mamoru happen upon an illustration that reminds them of buried memories of their days during the Silver Millennium. Yumemi finds the two of them and has them pose as models for her next piece. While reluctant, the two are brought closer to each other, though they still don't recall their previous lives. It's not long before Zoisite steals Yumemi's crystal, unleashing her Yoma. Sadly, this time he actually escapes with the crystal. Adding insult to injury, Tuxedo Mask admits that his mission is to gather the crystals, which means ultimately taking the one the Guardians retrieved. I'd left it out until now, but Motoki, the older guy working at the game arcade, is the object of affection for Usagi, Rei, and even Makoto. Problem is, their affections are crushed when they learn Motoki thinks of them as younger sisters, and that he already has a girlfriend. This girl, Reika, is the next person to have a rainbow crystal. As usual, Zoisite snags Reika's crystal and gets away with it, leaving Tuxedo Mask and the Guardians to defeat Reika's Yoma form. The next rainbow crystal is actually inside Rei's grandfather. When Zoisite extracts it, Grandpa Hino turns into a particularly vicious Yoma that nearly kills Rei. It's a relief that Usagi has her moon healing escalation to return him to normal. Sadly, that's another rainbow crystal for the enemy. The final rainbow crystal is a bit of a twist. Rather than being in a person, it's inside a cat named Rhett Butler. It takes both Zoisite and the Guardians a while to figure it out, but they soon fight over the crystal, which Tuxedo Mask ultimately procures and escapes with. This means Zoisite has 4 crystals, Mamoru has 2, and the Guardians have 1. To this point, the Guardians knew they were fighting evil, but didn't quite realize they were literal incarnations of past Guardians. Luna decides to finally tell them the truth, because she needs them to recall their past lives. With no more crystals to find, it's time for Zoisite to recover the ones he missed out on. He mods the black crystal into a device that turns humans into Yoma. and targets Naru while she's on a date with the inept geek Umino. As Usagi fights the Yoma Zoisite accidentally creates, Naru is captured, and Usagi is left with no choice but to hand over the Guardian's crystal in exchange for her safety. After some fighting, Zoisite escapes with the Guardian's only crystal. Queen Beryl, after reviewing past failures, declares Tuxedo Mask to be their prime target, as he has the remaining crystals and continues to interfere with her plans. She gives Zoisite his final warning to reclaim the last 2 crystals with his life on the line. A fake Sailor Moon emerges in the city, saving citizens from horrible accidents and the like. Mamoru is quick to notice that this Sailor Moon is actually causing these accidents in order to look like a hero. This fake is a trap set by Kunzite, with Zoisite disguised as Sailor Moon. Kunzite doesn't want his lover to suffer another failure, and is aiming to separate Tuxedo Mask from the rest of the Guardians. Zoisite shakes the disguise and fights against Tuxedo Mask, managing to remove his mask. Now the enemy, including Beryl, knows that Tuxedo Mask and Mamoru are one and the same. Beryl specifically recognizes him as the reincarnated Endymion, whom she adores. By suffocating the Guardians in a sealed barrier, Kunzite and Zoisite nearly convince Mamoru to give up his rainbow crystals, but they are interrupted by the sudden emergence of Sailor Venus. Now that all the inner Guardians have awakened, Minako has returned from England to join the fight against the Dark Kingdom. Knowing Tuxedo Mask's true identity, Queen Beryl has a change of plans. She actually forbids Zoisite from killing him. Not fully grasping the situation, though, Zoisite ignores orders and challenges Mamoru to a duel for the full ownership of the 7 rainbow crystals. Usagi finds Mamoru en route to Star Tower and follows along out of suspicion. The crystals are gathered together before the match, but it's a trap. Kunzite appears and claims them all, leaving Zoisite to kill Usagi and Mamoru. In an elevator, both of them transform into Sailor Moon and Tuxedo Mask respectively, revealing to each other their true identities. Not that it really should have taken this long. So yeah, the guy Usagi's been crushing on this entire time happened to be Mamoru, the same guy who kept calling her a bunhead. Mamoru fights Zoisite, but is pierced with a crystal spear. Shocked by his injury, Usagi begins to cry, and her tears gather with the rainbow crystals to form the silver crystal. While we already knew, Usagi now discovers that she is the Moon Princess Serenity. Usagi and Mamoru's memories come flooding back to them. Usagi passes out, and Mamoru is taken back to the Dark Kingdom's base. While he survives, Beryl infuses him with dark energy to make him loyal to her. She's supremely pissed, having just told Zoisite not to try and kill her beloved Endymion. As punishment, she executes Zoisite right in front of Kunzite, ordering her final officer to retrieve the completed silver crystal. Zoisite's wish is to die a beautiful death, and to accommodate this, Kunzite surrounds him with flowers. The Guardians reach Usagi too late, and are caught up in a dimensional rift. There, Usagi wakes up and breaks down, not wanting to accept the truth of her past. She doesn't want to carry on the princess's legacy, even as the other Guardians decide to fight. They choose to give her more time to cope with such a major revelation, but can't do so as Kunzite appears. To protect Usagi and the Silver Crystal, the Inner Guardians fight back, but are harshly defeated. Left to defend herself, Usagi transforms into Sailor Moon, repelling Kunzite with the Silver Crystal and teleporting everyone out of the dimensional rift. She fights because of the encouragement of her friends and her desire to save Mamoru. To obtain the Silver Crystal, Beryl demands to learn Sailor Moon's identity, and Kunzite brings forth some of Usagi's hair taken from their previous encounter. This hair is given to a Yoma running a new hair salon. Unaware of this, Minako convinces Usagi to visit the salon for a haircut, during which the Yoma notes that her hair matches the sample. Minako is attacked, forcing Usagi to transform and fight back. Usagi is about to heal the Yoma when Tuxedo Mask arrives, corrupted by dark energy and bent on recovering the crystal for Queen Beryl. They fight until the odds swing in the Guardian's favor, forcing Mamoru to retreat. While tragic, Usagi is glad he's still alive. Now that Mamoru is in charge of the Dark Kingdom's Yoma, he begins kidnapping all the people who once housed the rainbow crystals. Even though Usagi's healed them already, Beryl believes that if they're gathered into the Black Crystal, she could combine them into a supreme Yoma. The clairvoyant Ryo Urawa predicts that he'll be attacked next, and calls for Ami to help. While Mamoru manages to capture Ryo, Ami tricks him, and succeeds in shattering the Black Crystal, freeing the people captured inside. Usagi arrives and hits Mamoru with moon healing escalation, restoring his senses, only for Beryl to seal him in a capsule and corrupt him with more dark energy. The The Guardians begin searching for a way to reach the Dark Kingdom, and Ami discovers on her computer an increase in sunspot activity, which Artemis says also happened before the Dark Kingdom's attack on the moon. Basically, they're running out of time, and Beryl almost has enough energy to awaken Metalia. Kunzite plans to find the Sailor Guardians by looking into Sailor V's past. Conveniently, Katarina comes to town and contacts Minako after finding out she's still alive. Even though Minako doesn't want Katarina involved in their fight, Kunzite takes advantage of their reunion to turn her into a Yoma. Thankfully, Katarina is saved by moon healing escalation and is able to reconcile with Minako, putting their love triangle aside to remain friends. Eventually, the Guardians catch a break. Minako and Artemis discover a tunnel beneath the city that the Dark Kingdom uses to travel through. Within the tunnel, they fight Kunzite once more. During the battle, the silver crystal reacts, opening a vortex beneath the Guardians who fall in. Usagi wakes up in the ruins of the Moon Kingdom and speaks with Queen Serenity's spirit. The Guardians are shown the prosperity and downfall of the Silver Millennium. After seeing the events transpire in person, the Guardians reappear in the tunnel and are told by Luna and Artemis that, sure enough, the Dark Kingdom is on the other side. With renewed strength, they continue their fight with Kunzite. The inner Guardians form a barrier to protect Usagi, who in turn uses the silver crystal and moonstick to deal a final blow to Kunzite, causing one of his own knives to strike him. He dies, marking the end of all of Endymion's former generals. With their path to the Dark Kingdom revealed, the Guardians spend a final moment with their families before gathering at Rei's shrine. They join hands and teleport to the North Pole. Beryl unleashes her best Yoma, who begin to trick the Guardians. Usagi is fooled by the false image of Mamoru calling for help, and when the others try to stop her, they are fooled by their own illusions. The Yoma suspend Makoto in the air and try to electrocute her, rather foolishly, since she can counterattack with lightning of her own. Sadly, while Makoto manages to take out 2 of the Yoma, the attack is so strong that it kills her along with them. Usagi breaks down after seeing her friend die, and tries to hand over the crystal. The remaining Guardians stop her and proceed onward. Ami decides to buy the others time by confronting the other Yoma on her own. Like Makoto, she too is overwhelmed by illusions and struck with energy. She gives her life to kill the illusion Yoma. Minako is caught in a trap, pushing Usagi away before being pulled underground and tortured to death. With the last of her energy, she fires off her crescent beam to kill 2 more. Rei is Usagi's last protector, and continues to drag her forward despite their losses. Even so, the Yoma are too strong. Rei fights valiantly, even breaking out of a mountain of ice, but is left sacrificing herself with Fire Soul to torch one of the Yoma by its tentacles. Usagi, who lacked the will to endure even one of her friends dying, has lost them all. Even so, as she sits collapsed on her own, the Guardians comfort her in spirit, granting her determination to keep moving in honor of their sacrifice. An impatient and overconfident Beryl transports Usagi into the heart of the Dark Kingdom so that she can reveal Mamoru's corruption. Following Beryl's orders, Mamoru draws his sword on Usagi and manages to maintain his villainy even through moon healing escalation. Beryl claims she's fully purged Mamoru's memories. Usagi, bound by a black rose, is choked and blasted away. When Usagi cannot so much as lift the moonstick, Beryl orders Mamoru to deal a final blow. Usagi relies on her only remaining weapon, her moon tiara, which strikes Mamoru, forcing him to his feet. In a desperate plea, Usagi presents the music box Mamoru had dropped prior. He touches it and is flooded by past memories once more. He remembers the Silver Millennium, but even more importantly, he remembers something he had long forgotten. When he was in the hospital following the death of his parents, Usagi visited and comforted him. This breaks Beryl's control over Mamoru, causing him to fight back with his roses. However, he is struck with a fragment of rock and dies protecting Usagi. While Usagi mourns, Beryl stands before Metalia. The Dark Queen erupts from her cocoon and consumes Beryl, taking her body as a new incarnation. She grows tenfold, surging with dark energy. Only one person stands in Metalia's way, the tattered and tortured Sailor Moon. Their final confrontation is so immense that harsh weather swarms all of Japan. Usagi takes the form of Princess Serenity, prepared to unleash the full power of the silver crystal like her mother once had. The crystal protects Usagi from Metalia's dark energy, but it simultaneously consumes her life force. As Usagi reaches her limits, the spirits of her friends join and lend her their strength. gathering enough power for Usagi to fire a blast of energy that completely consumes Metalia, ending the Dark Kingdom once and for all. In fact, this energy engulfs the entire North Pole, and with this energy, Usagi makes a wish to have her old life back, free of her destiny as Sailor Moon. Thus, the energy is expelled, taking Usagi, Ami, Rei, Makoto, Minako, and Mamoru, and reincarnating them once more in an era without Yoma. In essence, they've all reset to how they were at the start of the season, with all of their memories of what transpired gone, both the good and the bad. Once more, they have another chance to live a normal life. Of course, we know it doesn't end here. We've still got plenty more seasons of Sailor Senshi action, so I sincerely hope you look forward to my future entries in this series. It's a tremendous endeavor, but I'd like to think that's why y'all tune in. Be sure to watch and share these videos, and I'll keep making them. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy this channel, help me beat the algorithm by liking, commenting, and sharing the video, subscribing to OtakuDaiKun, and, most of all, smashing that notification bell so you don't miss out on all of my anime discussion, lore, or Let's Play content. If you want to support me directly, there are now 3 ways that all provide the same benefits. You can click Join here on YouTube, or join Patreon or Subscribestar for access to exclusive vids and early access. As always, celebrate your fandom.